In the midst of one of the most harrowing chapters in Chinese history, a man named Si Ouey emerged as an unlikely protagonist in a story that would send chills down the spines of those who heard it. Si was real. Name was Huang Lihui, was born and raised in the bustling city of Shantou, China. His life took a drastic turn during the tumultuous period of the Second Sino-Japanese War, when he found himself on the front lines facing the formidable Japanese army. The war was relentless, and as the days stretched into months and years, Si Ouey and his fellow soldiers found themselves in dire circumstances. Rations, weapons, and even the most basic necessities became increasingly scarce. It was in the throes of this desperation that Si Ouey's story took a dark and horrifying turn. But the question that haunts this story is why and how. How did a soldier, once valiantly fighting for his country, become a cold-blooded murderer? The answer, it seems, lies in the cruel grip of starvation and the brutal fight for survival. As food and drink became scarcer and his comrades fell one by one, Huang Lihui faced a horrifying choice. Starvation can drive a person to contemplate unthinkable acts, and for Si Ouey, this desperation led him to the most gruesome decision imaginable. He began to consume the flesh of his fallen comrades to stay alive. What started as a desperate act of survival disturbingly evolved into a perverse pleasure. Si Ouey developed a taste for human flesh, and the line between necessity and desire blurred. This dark craving would continue to haunt him long after the war had ended. After the war's conclusion, Huang Lihui left China, adopting the name Si Ouey, and sought refuge in Thailand. He tried to build a semblance of a normal life, taking on various small jobs to make ends meet. However, the shadow of his dark past was never far behind. Between 1954 and 1958, a wave of terror swept through Bangkok as children began disappearing without a trace. Mothers anxiously reported their missing children to the police, but the identity of the kidnapper remained elusive. Some children's bodies were found, their internal organs gruesomely removed, but the mystery persisted. The city was gripped by fear, and the pressure on the police to find the killer intensified with each passing day. The count of missing children reached a horrifying 7, and the entire city was on edge. It was during this time that the police stumbled upon a gruesome scene in a forest near Bangkok. A man was discovered burning a child's body, a sight that sent shockwaves through the law enforcement community. The police wasted no time in arresting the man, and as they began to interrogate him, they were met with a horrifying revelation. The man, Si Ouey, confessed not just to one murder, but to the killings of all 7 missing children. The horror didn't end there. He admitted to the unspeakable act of boiling and eating the bodies of his victims. Si Ouey's dark cravings, which had originated during the wartime horrors of cannibalism, had resurfaced with a vengeance. He had lured these innocent children from deserted areas, ruthlessly killed them, and then indulged in the unthinkable. Following his shocking confession, Si Ouey was swiftly arrested in 1958. Within a year, the court of Bangkok handed down a death sentence for his heinous crimes. He was executed by firing squad in 1959 at the age of 31. However, even in death, Si Ouey's story would continue to confound and terrify. His body was not claimed by any family member, and as a result, the authorities faced a perplexing dilemma. They decided to use his remains for medical research, a decision born out of necessity rather than long-term planning. Si Ouey's body was preserved and utilized for medical testing, and eventually it found a permanent home at the Siriraj Medical Museum in Bangkok. Initially intended for the study of medical students, his macabre exhibit soon piqued the curiosity of the public. People flocked to the museum, eager to catch a glimpse of a real-life serial killer. The label on his display box revealed his true identity, and the public's fascination grew. People wondered about his appearance, his movements, and whether he was fundamentally different from them. The public's curiosity transformed Si Ouey into an eerie attraction, a grim reminder of humanity's darkest inclination. Yet, controversy was not far behind. Human rights activists argued vehemently that the body of a punished individual should not be on public display. Their voices, though, initially fell on deaf ears. Si Ouey was not only labeled a serial killer, but also a cannibal, due to a discrepancy in translations during his confession. This further fueled the controversy, raising questions about fairness and the role of the translator in delivering justice. As time passed, Si Ouey's body deteriorated, turning black and causing discomfort among viewers. The ethics of displaying his remains were increasingly questioned, with many believing that regardless of his deeds, he deserved his last rites. Human rights advocates began to voice their concerns, and the controversy escalated. Finally, in 2019, a decision was reached to remove Si Ouey's remains from public view. In July 2020, during the midst of a global pandemic, local court officials and city authorities gathered. They agreed that even a man with such a dark history deserved a proper send-off. The last rites were performed in accordance with Buddhist tradition in Bangkok. But curiously, no family member was informed or attended the ceremony, adding yet another layer of mystery to the story. Si Ouey, and sparked fascination with the macabre, his body, a haunting exhibit, was finally laid to rest after 62 years, bringing closure to a chapter of darkness and sparking conversations about ethics, justice, and human rights. The legacy of Si Ouey serves as a reminder of the depths to which humanity can sink in desperate times. It is a legacy of fear, fascination, and change, shaping the way we approach crime and punishment in the modern era.